Much of what people do is solve problems and make decisions. Often, they are stressed and very short for time. Consequently, when they encounter a new problem or decision they must make, they react with a decision that seemed to work before. It's easy with this approach to get stuck in a circle of solving the same problem over and over again. Therefore, it's often useful to get used to an organized approach to problem solving and decision making. In this lesson, we're going to detail the problem-solving model and discuss its techniques. Problems vary widely and so do their solutions. Sometimes a problem and its solution are clear, but you don't know how to get from point A to point B. At other times, you may find it hard to define what's wrong or how to fix it. Regardless of what a problem is, you can use a 6-step problem-solving model to address it. This model is highly flexible and can be adapted to suit various types of problems. It also comes with a flexible set of tools to use at each step. This model is designed to be followed one step at a time, but you may find that some stages don't require as much attention as others. This will depend on your unique and special situation. Now let's see every step and its recommended techniques. The first thing to do is to define the problem. This crucial step involves digging deeper to identify what it is that needs to be solved. The more clearly a problem is defined, the easier you'll find it to complete subsequent steps. A symptom is a phenomenon or circumstance that results from a deeper underlying condition. It's a common mistake symptoms for problems themselves. And so, to waste a lot of time and effort on tackling consequences of problems instead of their causes. To define a problem, you can use a tool such as gap analysis. This involves comparing your current state to the future state you want to be in, to identify the gaps between them. For example, Rachel knows that she is currently overtired and missing deadlines, and that she wants to feel better, rested, and meet her deadlines. The space between her current and desired states is the gap she needs to bridge by solving her problem. The next step is to analyze the problem. You decide what type of problem it is, whether there's a clear barrier or circumstance you need to overcome, or whether you need to determine how to reach a goal. You then dig to the root causes of the problem and detail the nature of the gap between where you are and where you want to be. This will help you see past the distracting symptoms to the real issues that underlie them. The 5 why analysis is a tool that will help you get to the heart of the problem. Ask why a number of times to dig through each layer of symptoms and so to arrive at the problem's root cause. For Rachel, the 5 why analysis begin with the question, I keep missing my deadlines. Why? She answers this honestly, because I always run out of time. Then she subjects this answer to a second why, which reveals that she's not managing her time properly. Subsequent whys will lead her closer to the real root cause of the problem and thus the best solution. You can get to the root of a more complicated problem using a cause and effect diagram, which is something that produces an effect, result, or consequence, or what contributes to the current state of affairs. Categories of causes include people, time, and the environment. In Rachel's case, a cause and effect diagram reveals that her crowded, noisy office environment, the interruptions from people, and unreasonable deadlines are the main factors contributing to her problem or missing deadlines. Next, identify as many potential solutions as you can. In other words, try to think of ways to close the gap. Brainstorm creatively, ask lots of questions about the who, what, where, when, and how of the causes to point to various possibilities. Don't limit yourself by considering practicalities at this stage. Simply record your ideas. Once you've generated as many ideas as you can, you need to evaluate them so you can choose the best solution. In evaluating your idea, more options could present themselves. You could do this by rating each possible solution you came up with in step 3 according to criteria such as how effective it will be, how much time or effort it will take, its cost, and how likely it is to satisfy stakeholders. What these criteria are will depend on the problem at hand. Think about this question. Take a break and think about this question. If you would place your solutions in a matrix like this one, the one you see here, which one do you think would be the best choice? I would say that solution B is the best because it's the easiest to implement and also the most effective. What do you think? Now, once you've decided what the best solution is, you need to map out your plan of action in this way. First, determine what steps must be taken, designating tasks where necessary. Decide on deadlines for completing the actions and estimate the cost of implementing them. Create a contingency plan in case of unforeseen circumstances, so that if anything goes wrong with your plan, there is always a plan B in place. Typically, this stage involves narrowing down the possible ways to implement the solution you have chosen, based on any constraints that apply. For instance, you have identified training employees in a particular skill as the solution to a problem. During planning, you determine that the available budget only allows for e-learning and remote training, so these are the types of training you'd plan to provide. Next, you should draw up an action plan that includes the who, what and when of your proposed solution. The complexity of the plan will depend on the situation, but it should include these basic elements. As the final step, you need to implement the solution. This is an ongoing process. You need to ensure the required resources remain available and monitor progress in solving the problem. Otherwise, all the work you've done might be for nothing. You can use a checklist to track what has been done and note what still needs to happen. Now, stop this video and try this practice exercise. We have one virtual employee, Robert, who works for a small photocopying business. He's been asked to figure out why the business spends so much money on fixing or replacing damaged equipment and to take steps to improve the situation. Try to sequence the 6 steps of the problem-solving process he should follow. Stop the video, as I said, for a minute and try to organize these activities in the correct order. Now, let's see how we can order these activities. Use a checklist to monitor. As a final step, Robert needs to implement his chosen solution and review the implementation on an ongoing basis to ensure that it's working. If not, he'll have to make adjustments or even fall back on a contingency plan. Complete a cause and effect matrix. After coming up with as many possible solutions as he can, Robert will need to choose the best of these. An analysis of the proposed solutions can help him narrow down the options based on their likely benefits and on the effort and resources they'll take to implement. Brainstorm to generate ideas. As the third step, once the real cause of the problem is clear, Robert needs to brainstorm creatively in order to identify as many solutions as possible. By thinking outside the box, he might find a solution he wouldn't have thought otherwise. Do a gap analysis. As the first step, Robert needs to define what the problem really is. At the moment, the machines are breaking down more frequently than they should be. He'd like to end up with a situation in which the machines require only routine maintenance. Draw up a cause and effect diagram. Once Robert is sure he knows what the problem is, the second step is to analyze the problem to determine its root causes or causes. The wear and tear of the machines is only a symptom. Perhaps they are of inferior quality, or maybe they aren't serviced often enough to prevent breakdowns. Draw up an action plan. As the fifth step, once he's chosen a solution, Robert needs to plan how best to implement it. This will depend on any constraints. For example, hiring a full-time technician may not be feasible, but existing staff members could undergo maintenance training. Problem solving and decision making are important skills in business and life. Problem solving often involves decision making, and decision making is especially important for management and leadership. There are processes and techniques to improve decision making and the quality of your decision. Decision making is more natural to certain personalities, so these people should focus more on improving the quality of their decisions. People that are less natural decision makers are often able to make quality assessment, but then need to be more decisive in acting upon the assessments made. Next lesson, we will discuss problem-solving mind traps. You will be able to understand, identify, and avoid them.